So about 110 years ago, Selinsgrove residents celebrated Christmas by gathering for a community tree event. After 1910, there was a water fountain, in the middle of the intersection at Market and Pine Streets. And the empty basin of the fountain was used to mount a Christmas tree. No photos that I know exist, and so I've given you an artistic rendering of what that looked like. The tree gathering actually happened in the evening on Christmas Day. In 1916, a choir of 50 people sang carols to an even larger crowd. The event was organized by Maggie Wingard, a no-nonsense choir director and pillar of the community. She took no prisoners. In 1921, she produced one of the best Away in the Mangers that the Valley had ever heard. In 1923, Santa greeted kids at the fountain before the music kicked in. In 1925, the Moose was credited with supplying the tree and gifts for the kids. It was candy. Sticky, freezing little hands clutched unwrapped candy canes and gumdrops in the 25-degree twilight. The Moose was the mover and shaker in the 1930s. They purchased large trees for the occasion. In the 1930s, it was also the Patriotic Order of Sons of America, who mounted trees on the Schnorr ball field, kind of around where Domino's is today. The Rotary and the Manual Arts Department of the high school took in toys from area houses, broken toys, donated toys, fixed them up, and then gave them back to kids in need. The Rotary and the Moose canvassed door to door to pick up these toys over the course of November and December. Apart from a large tree and a gathering, there was not really a concerted effort in the 1930s to decorate. Instead, homeowners and businesses did up their buildings as they wished. The town was lively and bright, but it was sort of all over the place. In the 1940s and 1950s, the Moose provided a Christmas party for members' kids at first, and then eventually for all kids who wanted to attend. It was held in the Stanley Theater until the event outgrew that venue. Then it hit the high school auditorium. In 1951, there were 800 kids at the Moose Christmas party. Santa arrived each year with candy and small gifts for the kids. Oranges were big until the 1960s, apparently. Everybody got oranges for Christmas. We know this, yes. And the Dauntless Hook and Ladder Company also held another party for children in the fire hall in the 1940s and 1950s, and the Moose and the fire hall basically competed for which party could be larger and more elaborate. Then on the scene came the Selinsgrove Merchants Association. It had existed in some form or another since the 1920s. The group reorganized in the late 1940s to drum up business for the town during the Christmas season. On December 10th, this is their first big act. On December 10th, 1949, they paid for a Santa Claus to fly over town. Kids were assembled on the Walnut Street side of Burns Furniture. Once they saw the plane pass overhead, the kids were ushered into the store to await Santa's arrival. They weren't supposed to see Santa getting a ride in a police car to the store. They weren't supposed to see Santa climbing a ladder to the second floor to enter from above. But there were stragglers outside. So when Santa's foot got caught as his leg was clearing the windowsill and he tumbled into the second floor room, we can imagine that those youthful spectators were a little shaken up. In 1950, the association placed Santa Claus shields over the top of every lamppost, and they strung colored Christmas lights from lampposts on ropes of artificial laurel. At the intersection of Pine and Market, the strings of lights crisscrossed to light up the square. That's a classic look. You can probably imagine that look. Many towns had that look of lights crossing at an intersection. One of the Merchants Association's initiatives was to get Borough Council to waive parking fees to encourage shopping. The Easter session of 1953 was the first time that the association dared to tackle the parking issue. Ooh. Parking meters had been installed on Market Street in the summer of 1948. By the mid-1960s, many American towns felt the pinch of shopping centers with big stores and free parking on the outskirts of town. The Selinsgrove merchants won a 3-week reprieve of free parking. In 1962, the Kiwanis Club purchased a truckload of electric lights and tinsel to decorate Market Street. Starting in '63, downtown was illuminated by these decorations. Also in 1963, Santa flew into Penn Valley Airport, directly from the North Pole apparently, and was taken by DH&L trucks to the lobby of the Hotel Governor Snyder. He entered through the door on the ground floor. The idea was that Santa entertained kids while their parents went out shopping. The Merchants Association also bought a large number of small artificial trees to be spray painted and placed in front of area businesses. In hindsight, this was like a trial run of what would eventually be White Christmas. In the late 1960s, an architectural facelift came to town when Joe Kleinbauer moved his clothing business to the corner of Market and Chestnut and had the building renovated to look like a colonial shop. It was a new look for Selinsgrove. Then in 1971, 7 other businesses followed suit: an insurance firm, a hobby shop, a women's clothing store, a plumbing supply store, an auto parts store, the Hotel Governor Snyder, a gift shop, and a shoe store soon offered a stately vision of small-town colonial America. Seeking a colonial look was part of a larger trend in the mid-Atlantic states in the 1960s and 1970s, especially in places like Selinsgrove, where a high volume of traffic made the downtown corridor feel way too congested. Simplicity and taste were the remedy. So Selinsgrove now had a downtown corridor with a historical character, at least for one solid block. The Merchants Association announced in October 1972 that they had a new theme for holiday decorations. This was the White Christmas theme. The concept was 18th century colonial, the colonial Williamsburg look brought to Selinsgrove. And it was a joining of 2 parallel concepts. Joe Kleinbauer had gotten the idea from 2 SU professors who mentioned to him casually that the downtown business owners should do something new for Christmas decorations. And jeweler Fritz Frost had seen the idea at work in Yardley, PA, in Bucks County, and thought that Selinsgrove could pull it off too. By the time a committee came together to plan the event in 1972, it was late September. All the newspapers said they had 6 weeks. So 1972, the association planned for 24 live trees to be placed along the downtown corridor and decorated in white. The architecture and the simple decoration would greet the viewer with a clean, classic look. They sought donations from townspeople, calling for egg cartons and pull tabs from cans. These would be combined into outdoor decorations for the trees. The homemade vibe was important here. The vision also included boxwood wreaths and white candles for residences in the 3-block downtown corridor, just from just north of where we are now down to the post office. The association decoration committee consisted of Joe Kleinbauer, Kay Koch, Fritz Frost, Guy Klinger, Joan Harvey, Jim Hill, and Iva Jean Shipe. Here we go. Shipe was the town's tax collector and yarn shop proprietor. She coordinated the decorating like a drill sergeant. This wasn't her first dance. She'd worked as a nurse for 13 years in a 117-bed New York City hospital that had been condemned for having only one exit and 16 floors. She knew how to scrap. Some people, like her sworn enemies in the PTA, wondered whether she was too big city for this task. Other people told those people to be quiet, unless they wanted to manage the cutting, the painting, the sorting, the boxing, and the hanging of hundreds of snowmen, pinwheels, snowflakes, candy canes, and Raggedy Ann and Andes. Iva Jean's home, right across from where Isabella's is now, became the headquarters for weekly crafting sessions in October, then almost daily sessions in November. But in Iva Jean's basement, she harbored a terrible secret. It wasn't actually that terrible. She had 26 boxes of decorations down there, one for each of the 24 trees, and 2 boxes for the larger tree to be decorated at the Borough Building. Iva Jean's dining room and basement were the workshop that made the White Christmas happen in year 1. In late October, Kleinbauer and Frost spoke at the monthly Rotary meeting to announce the project. Kleinbauer detailed how parking meters would be transformed into old-fashioned lollipops. Bill Adams Sr. of 326 North Market led the lollipop production. They were made of painted cardboard. One of the groups that was instrumental in Project Lollipop was the Selinsgrove Junior Women's Club. They built over 90 of these in 1972. Remember that this was when all traffic went through town. So the scene that the Merchant Association was about to set would be seen by all kinds of people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, as they crawled through Selinsgrove in almost bumper-to-bumper traffic. Wednesday, November 22nd, 1972 was Decorating Day. This was the day before Thanksgiving. All community groups were asked to chip in and decorate, starting at 9 a.m. High school students helped out. State school residents and staff helped out. A hot chocolate table in the Borough Building was open to anyone involved. There were reports of mischief at the hot chocolate table. When the work was over, everyone was invited to the lighting of a 25-foot fir tree at the Borough Building. It came from Arthur Bolig's front yard on Charles Street. 300 people attended. Carols were sung. Mayor Bill Hetherington gave a proclamation. Anna Troutman and Shirley Hill shot dirty looks at each other from across the crowd. The tree ceremony was just the first part of a 4-part program. 2 weeks after the tree went up, the borough held a late-night shopping event. The following week, a kids' shopping and Santa celebration took place. The high school marching band led a frigid procession through the town, beset by wintry mix and a punishing wind. This 5-block trudge ended with Santa's arrival. Then the final chapter came on December 21st with a community caroling session at the Borough Building. It was serious business, with song sheets and an SU choir leader on site to keep everyone in line. Maggie Wingard's legacy lived on. Carolers dare not miss a note or talk to their neighbor. All of this was in the name of a town beset with pride, filled brimming with spirit, and generating shopping in the downtown corridor. The Merchants Association placed a special advertising section in local newspapers to set the mood. That pull-out ad section is a nice snapshot, a great snapshot of the town in the 1970s, the commercial side of the town. It shows a town probably at its commercial height in the 1900s, in the 20th century. A variety of businesses advertised under a Christmas theme in the years before the mall entered the picture a few years later. So 1972. The following year, the celebration was bigger and organized earlier. Harry and Ruth Hess held a garage sale in August of 1973 to raise funds for decorations. When the decorating committee met in early October, they issued a call for egg cartons again, the plastic eggs that Legs pantyhose came in, and aluminum foil pie plates. Year 2 saw the addition of a dozen more trees, bringing it up to 36, and the extension of the decorations to a 4th block. The decoration efforts were again under Iva Jean Scheip, and they produced more than 3,000 decorations for the trees. The main workspace moved to the space above Bots. It later moved to the basement of an attorney's office across the street from the post office. This scene here, I'm not sure where this is. Somebody mentioned where they thought this was last year. Seems to be a church basement, but I don't know which church basement this might have been. But you can see at the end of this footage here, on the left, the stacks of numbered boxes assigned to each tree out on Market Street. Probably Sharon Lutheran. It looks big enough, right? Yeah. I'm just falling silent while we watch. Ryan's Florist. Ryan's Florist supplied the extra greenery that went above doorways and store windows. The second White Christmas was also taking place during the 1973 oil crisis, so the organizers decided that the large string of lights on the Borough Building tree would be turned off at 9 p.m. each night instead of burning all night. They also placed into storage the large collection of electric lights that the Kiwanis Club donated to the Merchants Association. The SU sorority Beta Sigma Phi participated in the decorating in 1973. So did the area Girl Scout troop, the local Welcome Wagon Club, the Lady Sealand Rebecca Lodge, and the Selinsgrove students once again. The Santa Parade was drier this year, so the festivities were a little more festive. This is a great piece of film. All these videos come from Joe Kleinbauer, who has a wonderful collection of home movies of this stuff. This is 1973. There were apparently multiple Santas in town on the same night this year, deployed throughout the downtown corridor to greet local youth. In a few years, these Santas would compete with the one who appeared at Boscov's at the mall. But these were the golden days. The days of Santa turf wars were still far in the future. In 1974, the third year of the White Christmas celebration, a dinner dance was added to the lineup of events. The White Christmas Ball would continue for the next 28 years. At the ball, 5 young women were nominated to be White Christmas Queen. Janice Heiser was crowned at the Susquehanna Valley Country Club. This was the year that Ernie Weaver, a retired contractor who lived up on the hill above campus, SU's campus, donated the large tree that sat in front of the Borough Building. Weaver had moved into his house in 1950 and planted 500 trees on the back part of his property. This year began his yearly donation to White Christmas, so 24 years of magic. Several other clips, video clips from Joe Kleinbauer of 1973 and 1974. This is Decoration Day, 1974. Note in the next scene of this, the busy traffic on Market Street. Market Street by this time, pre-bypass, was typically like a parking lot. And then finally here, Davis Drugs is where the headquarters is today, so on the corner of Pine and Market. All of these efforts on Decoration Day took place under the watchful eye of block captains. Block captains who were carefully selected for their ability to squeeze work out of 17-year-olds. The following year, 1975, the Merchants Association paid for the refreshments for 2 dances at the high school and the middle school. So this was their way of paying back the students who were helping on Decoration Day. So the white Christmas calendar kept getting more and more elaborate. They crowned another white Christmas queen. And they brought charges against a handful of SU students who stole decorations and stashed them in their dorm rooms. Later that year, the dean of students at SU warned the student body not to repeat the shenanigans. Apart from that, it was a pretty quiet year. 100 or so people gathered to decorate on the day before Thanksgiving. The mid-1970s was the golden age for the White Christmas Committee. It might be too strong to say that they were drunk with power, but maybe they were a little tipsy. Getting a shot at chairing one of these groups' subcommittees was a make-or-break moment for local social climbers. A season with the publicity subcommittee could give you access to Ron Berkheimer's Rolodex crammed full of Valley movers and shakers. Rick Savage of the activity subcommittee was known to run a ruthless bake sale. Bill Adams had the district attorney eating out of his hand. The all-powerful ornament subcommittee ran with an iron fist by a nursery school teacher, Sandy Umstead, was a training ground for the next generation of central Pennsylvania talent. The list goes on. The trees subcommittee, the building decorations subcommittee, which boasted a depth chart more impressive than the 58 Colts, the dance subcommittee, and finally the notorious finance subcommittee. Paul Harrow, a bank vice president, and borough councilman from the rough side of Woodruff Avenue, didn't miss a single Penn State home football game between 1972 and 1994, but he still managed to balance the white Christmas books. The Christmas Queen's gift certificates to DJ Spaghetti House did not grow on trees. You didn't have to tell Paul Harrow that. But I digress. In 1976, the bypass opened, so the Merchant Association held a block party on Market Street in October to celebrate the end of bumper-to-bumper traffic crawling through town. The festivities included cider and donuts, gallons of apple butter, and roast pork sandwiches. This was a prototype of the Market Street Festival, 1976. Also in 1976, the Selinsgrove Area Chamber of Commerce proposed to Borough Council the removal of all parking meters. They needed repairs and renovations, and the bill would be about $5,600. After some wrangling, council decided to remove some meters, only those on the 2 central blocks of Market Street and the first block of Pine Street would remain. Of course, these meters were lollipops for White Christmas. At the tail end of 1978, Borough Council decided to remove all the meters, rather than pay $7,500 to bring them up to modern standards. In 1977, a group of 9 women made 4,000 tree decorations from styrofoam meat trays. They met weekly on a sun porch on High Street from February to November to paint the decorations. Marshall Ritter, a retired butcher and Wise meat department manager, cut the decorations in his home in Shamokin Dam. By this year, Middleburg and Beaver Springs were also using the simple look of colonial Christmas for their town decorations. There was also another Christmas queen and more malfeasance at the hot chocolate table. Nothing much to report from 1978, another pleasant white Christmas with the community lending a hand and tons of work happening behind the scenes. Another white Christmas queen. Now, in my quest to bring as much intrigue and scandal to the White Christmas story as possible, the year 1979 looms large. This was the year when someone vandalized one of the lollipops, and it made the daily item. It's about as spicy as it gets. On par with Tina Walters' shocking defeat of Diane App and Tammy Hoffman in the 1978 Queen battle. In 1980, the celebration used the phrase "the friendly town" to further build visitor welcoming vibes, and the organizers found new ways to get the word out. Willard Scott mentioned Selinsgrove's White Christmas on the Today Show, after the decorating crew sent him a few samples of homemade ornaments. Also in 1980, they crowned another White Christmas queen, but a king for the first time. In 1981, there was another queen, and the organizers considered making the end-of-season tree burning part of the official calendar of events. Think about that. It never caught on. It never joined in the full celebration status. You can probably imagine why. Before we leave 1981, let me wrap up my coverage of White Christmas royalty. They kept on crowning kings and queens until the mid-1990s. There they are. In 1985, organizers worried that there wouldn't be the staff power to mount another White Christmas. It seemed like after 13 years, it would end. Turnover in leadership ranks meant that there wasn't anybody by early summer to lead the way. Local newspaper editors wrote about this turn of events. The Merchants Association solicited volunteers, and the crisis was averted. And it seems like they even doubled down because they announced that they were bringing back the Santa Parade, which had not been attempted in a few years. And they wrote to the First Lady of Pennsylvania, Ginny Thornburg, to ask if she would make an appearance as part of a scheduled trip to the Selinsgrove Center. On decorating day 1985, Mrs. Thornburg showed up, looked around a little bit, and talked to the people who were busily decorating trees. Our story ends in 1987, when Selinsgrove Projects Incorporated took over management of the White Christmas event. And although it's changed in shape, size, and faces since 1987, the holiday event, the decorations, the theme that we know of in Selinsgrove today, still makes the town a lively place at the end of the year, still depends upon a lot of work behind the scenes and the commitment of many people to make it happen. I wanted to end with this great photograph that I discovered yesterday in a folder of materials that the library gave to me. I think it's poignant that it makes you wait for it. I felt like it had to end with that can of Pepsi sitting under the